Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. AMC stock is up about 0.61%. Here in this video, we are going to be going over everything you need to know in regards to AMC stock, all of the data, what the sentiment looks like out there, any and all news for our markets, as well as AMC. Hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think about this information and let's get started. So first things first, AMC stock did hit a new multi-year low today, $3.98 per share. Now, judging off of this low and how you hit it and bounce straight back up, this Wyckoff wick here just basically means you fell, boom, you hit a low, you got bought right up. You hit a major demand zone where likely a lot of buy orders were sitting. This is usually a sign of a longer term bottom, right? That's usually the capitulation, the flush out period. And normally when you get those candles, you can see some pretty nice, bounce returns over the next couple of weeks. We'll see if that ultimately does hold up. I think today and after hours is going to be a very big deal. You do have SoFi stock that is up about 23% today, one of my largest holdings that I have across many different brokerages. So I'm planning on making a video on that later on in the day today. But that is definitely helping out the small and mid cap stocks to see a big win on SoFi's earnings. Definitely good news for the entire small and mid cap sector, whereas a lot of investors have really counted those stocks out for an extended period of time. But we do have more earnings that come out here in after hours today, one of which will be very important. We've spoke about this a couple times here on the channel so far. It is going to be SuperMicro. They are the largest component of the Russell 2000. As you know, AMC is also in that ETF, that index. So if SMCI has bad earnings, which they already pre-reported their earnings or updated the guidance like 2 Fridays ago. So we already kind of know what the numbers are going to look like, but it does set a high bar for the next quarter, right? For next quarter's guidance, in which we don't have next quarter's guidance just yet. And then the other factor with SuperMicro is on December 1st, they did announce they were going to dilute shareholders about 4%. They're going to raise about $500 million. If you look at the balance sheet, the receivables and the current liabilities, yeah, it looks like they definitely need to raise some capital. And it does not appear as if, looking at the stock chart, that they have actually done that. Typically, the period right before earnings or right after earnings, you don't tend to see dilution. So it could come after earnings. And, that could be negative. I mean, SMCI has rallied 70% in January alone, 76% or some kind of crazy number. A lot of that based on their preliminary numbers they did release about 2 Fridays ago. But nonetheless, the stock could be set up for a fall after earnings, which could negatively impact your Russell 2000 names. And that would be unfortunate, but that is a possibility here you definitely need to be made aware about. Now, as far as AMC stock specifically, it does not look like you have much for actual news today. It says Reddit, which has nothing to do with AMC, but it's popping up here on the newswire for AMC. It says Reddit advised to target at least $5 billion valuation in IPO. So Reddit IPOing at some point in 2024 is going to be exciting. We'll see. We'll probably cover the stock at least a little bit here on the channel. But nonetheless, the option activity here on the day for AMC stock, you have volume of 75% to the call side, 25% to the put side. So more bullish activity than bearish activity, that's for sure. And you do have one order specifically for AMC worth $560,000 and a positive order value of 100%. So that's a big order. And this specific trade is for January 17th, 2025, a $10 call. They bought 10,000 of these for $56 a piece. $560,000 total. So whoever's buying this believes that the AMC stock is going to make quite a large move in the next 6 months or so. So definitely interesting there. We'll have to see how that does evolve. We'll probably talk about that a little bit more in the next video as well. Now, in regards to all of the data that is currently in play for AMC stock today, you do have 10.62% short interest off your float, $108.28 million worth of short positions currently. Days to cover 1.42, 26.6 million shares currently out on loan, or currently sold short. 24.53 million shares currently out on loan. Cost to borrow 1.08%, utilization of 38.3%, and a short score of 59.35 out of 100. So decent numbers here. They are getting a lot better than where they were. Short interest was 7% and some change. Now it's 10.6%. When newer investors that are looking to trade the stock see the 10%, 10.5%, it looks better than 7%. Right? So a little bit of an improvement there. If you take a look at the cost to borrow fees, about 5.82%. Now, we did not have much as far as economic data is concerned today, besides one little piece here, and let's go ahead and give you that information. So Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index. All your manufacturing indexes have been terrible. The Dallas Fed was no different. Last month, you were negative 10.4. Expectation was negative 23. You came in at negative 27.4 today. So worse than expected. Now, it's hard to say this is due to the weather or due to other factors here. Manufacturing is just in a very bad place overall. But that is really it as far as today's data. Now, tomorrow and really overnight tonight, you're going to get a decent amount of data out of Europe. A lot of GDP data from France, from Germany, and from the overall EU. And then you are going to get JOLTS job openings coming out tomorrow morning. Expectation is kind of mixed here, 8.75 million to 8.69 million. Last month was 8.79 million. So a little bit of a deceleration here. Less job openings are expected. A plummeting for job openings will be really bad news. A just slight fall in job openings, likely good news. And a rise in job openings, probably a little bit of good news as well, because you would rather see more people, more firms trying to hire than more firms trying to lay off at this point when everyone is super fearful about a potential recession. Now, as far as your AI investor sentiment survey, we will get a new one coming out again on Thursday, but latest numbers, 26.1% of investors bearish, 34.6% of investors that are neutral, and 39.3% of investors that are bullish. Something I also talked about in the last video is the inversion of the yield curve. Now, you want to be watching this to see if you actually uninvert over the next couple of days here, especially on Wednesday when we actually get the Fed meeting. There is a pretty good chance that you actually see the Fed announce an end to quantitative tightening, and that could have a huge effect on essentially uninverting the yield curve. And if that yield curve does invert, typically that happens right before a recession. Now, I think the markets are more on the fence now. It's about 50-50 split. Some people think a recession's coming, some people do not. But when the yield curve goes positive, if you are going to go into a recession, it typically happens just months after the uninversion. So that is definitely something we want to be watching pretty closely here over the next couple of days. The 10 and the 2-year is still inverted about 19 basis points as of right now. Now, if we look at what the markets are pricing in for Fed policy coming on this Wednesday, not much of a change here. I'm not expecting to see a change. We are expecting to see a continued pause from the Fed. But for March 20th, expectations are currently 51.4% for a pause, 47.2% for a rate cut, and 1.5% for 2 rate cuts by March. Now, coming this Wednesday, the Fed is going to outline essentially what their plans are. If they plan to cut soon, if they don't plan to cut soon, they're going to let us know generally what their next move is going to be. They don't want to surprise the markets. With that being said, Wednesday is going to be a very big day for that specifically. And again, if the Fed does announce an end to quantitative tightening, I think a lot of your interest rate sensitive stocks are going to do very, very well coming on Wednesday. Now, we're going to have a lot of earnings to throw in the mix there. Tomorrow, pre-market, Pfizer, GM, UPS, and other names. Tuesday and after hours, Microsoft, AMD, Alphabet. Starbucks, that's a jam-packed week right there just on Tuesday. On Wednesday is going to be your slower day as far as earnings. MasterCard, Thermo Fisher, Boston Scientific, Boeing, Novo Nordisk, and then in after hours, Qualcomm, but really Wednesday is all going to be about the Fed. On Thursday in after hours, Apple, Amazon, Meta will be reporting earnings. On Friday, pharmaceutical names as well as Exxon and Chevron. So quite a few earnings this week. You're going to have a vast majority of the S&P 500 actually reporting earnings this week, and we'll see if we match expectations. Hopefully we do. If not, we're going to be in for a little bit of a problem. As far as AMC stock on StockTwits and the sentiment, you're currently sitting in a sentiment of 62, so you are on the bullish side. Message volume is sitting at low at 25. So that's better than where it was at extremely low 1 day ago. It was sitting at 9. So now you're at 25, which is a little bit of an improvement. And participation ratio has been improving as well. Now you are at 52, which is again a lot better than numbers that we have seen recently. The percentage of stocks above their 50-day moving average here on the day today is down actually about 0.86%. S&P 500 really not doing much of anything, so I'm not super surprised. But a lot of your small and mid-cap stocks are outperforming today based on SoFi's earnings and the expectation that maybe small cap stocks can come through this earnings season, and maybe valuations are way too cheap for these small and mid-cap stocks. Now, something else that we'll talk about a little bit more in the next video, it could be the great shift of capital as the Fed does actually start to potentially stop quantitative tightening. You could see part of the $6.2 trillion currently sitting in money market funds come back into our markets. Now, if that does happen, you got to consider the entire market cap of the Russell 2000 is about $2.7 billion. So, it's not going to take a lot of that money. That's the average weighting of a company in the Russell 2000. The entire index is about 2.2 trillion. So there's 6.2 trillion in money market funds. Small cap stocks could stand to benefit quite a bit from all of that money potentially coming back into our markets. So we will have to wait and see, but that could be a possible positive outcome from Wednesday as well. I expect if the Fed does end quantitative tightening, it really would positively affect your small and mid-cap stocks more than any other name. S&P 500 is up about 0.1%, marching on. Not quite a new all-time high for the SPY, but you're only about 20 cents off or so, so we'll see if that does happen today. SMCI is going to be the stock that really does affect your semiconductors like Nvidia and other names. So that's definitely something to be watching for. You're also seeing a spike in volatility today in the UVXY. You can see is up 2.45%, which is not that uncommon considering we're heading into earnings, the Fed on Wednesday, economic data this week. But to see such a spike is pretty interesting. The VIX is up 4.45%. And the NASDAQ is positive 0.25%. Typically, to see the VIX up 4.5%, you would expect to see, indexes at least slightly in the red. That would at least be my expectation. But all things considered, this just means there's more puts being bought on our markets right now than calls, than what we have seen as of recently. So a little bit of a bearish sign there, but after all, what can you expect? So hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think about this information down below in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.